Did you know that the way we grow our food today is drastically different from how it was done just a few generations ago? Large-scale monoculture farming has replaced traditional methods like crop rotation and diversified farming, but at what cost to our health and the environment? In this video, we will examine what are the differences between industrial agriculture using monoculture and traditional, sustainable, diversified farming. How does industrial agriculture affect human health and the environment? And then finally, can diversified farming feed the world's population? Stick around to the end of this video when we will consider this week's ethical dilemma in science. Should we abandon modern agricultural practices and return to traditional methods like crop rotation and diversified farming? What are the differences between industrial agriculture using monoculture and traditional, sustainable, diversified farming? Industrial agriculture developed in the mid-20th century as a means to use technology to feed the growing world's population. Elaborate machines built upon simple tractors were invented to clear the land by widespread tilling the soil, disrupting the vibrant ecosystem that should flourish underground in fertile fields. Other farm equipment is used to plant and harvest crops to replace the manual labor lost as the population moved to urban areas in search of higher-paying jobs. These specialized machines, such as combines to harvest corn and wheat, worked most efficiently on large swaths of land, producing the same crop, forcing farmers who invested in the technology to adopt monoculture strategies, where they would only plant and harvest single crops. As a consequence, the soil fertility was rapidly depleted, triggering a need for the application of fertilizers to maintain productivity. Insect pests that fed upon the crop would rapidly invade the fields, requiring farmers to apply pesticides to reduce the insect damage. Most crops have limited growing seasons, so the fields are productive for only a portion of the year. Between growing seasons, the soil is often left barren without the plant growth needed to reduce erosion and support the soil bacteria essential for healthy plant growth. In contrast, in sustainable or diversified farming, a variety of crops are grown either simultaneously or in rotation on the same land. Crop rotation is a farming practice that changes the plants grown on a plot of land each growing season. As you might expect, not all plants are the same in regards to what nutrients they use from the soil and what materials they deposit in the soil as they grow. Corn and wheat both require adequate nitrogen, so as they grow, they consume and deplete the usable form of nitrogen from the soil. Without replacing the nitrogen, corn and wheat planted in subsequent growing seasons will struggle. In the practice of industrial agriculture, the depleted nitrogen is restored to the soil in the form of chemical fertilizers. However, in the practice of crop rotation, soybeans are planted in between corn growing seasons to reduce or even replace the need for fertilizer application. These cover crops can also protect the soil from excess heat that could kill the organisms needed for healthy soil, conserve moisture, and reduce erosion. An important example of diversified farming in which multiple crops are grown together simultaneously is demonstrated in traditional Indigenous American agriculture. The Iroquois and Cherokee refer to maize, what we now call corn, bean, and squash as the Three Sisters, which are grown together to nourish and support each other. The corn stalks serve as a scaffold for beans to climb upon to increase sun exposure. The squash, growing low along the ground, has broad leaves that shade the ground, reduce weed growth, and minimize evaporation of soil moisture. And finally, the roots of the beans convert nitrogen into a usable form, almost like a natural fertilizer that feeds the corn. How does industrial agriculture affect human health and the environment? The impact of industrial agriculture extends well past the edges of the field. The fertilizer, pesticides, and herbicides needed to promote bountiful harvests will leach into the water supply. At the human level, contaminants in our water supply must be removed to purify our drinking water. Even when this pollution doesn't enter our water treatment plants, the chemicals to promote crop growth can disrupt the aquatic ecosystems as algae and plants that have similar needs to agricultural crops flourish but form harmful conditions such as algal blooms that may kill fish, further degrading the health of our waterways. Large-scale monoculture farming has become the dominant practice in modern agriculture, driven by factors such as increased food demand, economic incentives, and technological advances. However, this approach has raised concern about its impact on human health and the environment. Intensive use of synthetic fertilizers and pesticides has been linked to water pollution, soil degradation, and potential health risk from chemical residues in food. Additionally, monoculture farming can lead to a loss of biodiversity, soil erosion, and increased greenhouse gases. So the question that needs to be answered is, can diversified farming feed the world's population? The world's population reached 8 billion in November 2022 and is projected to reach 10 billion by 2058, just over 30 years from now. Despite the advances to increase crop production, over a quarter of the world's population experienced moderate or severe food insecurity in 2022, and this percentage grew to a third of the people in rural areas. In urban areas, the foods available are often in the form of unhealthy fast foods and lack fresh fruits and vegetables needed for a healthy diet. At the opposite end of the spectrum, the world is simultaneously facing an obesity epidemic, with over 2.5 billion adults overweight and 890 million living with obesity. These individuals often ingest a surplus of calories with a diet of highly processed, energy-dense foods with saturated fats and sugars, and may be malnourished as their diet lacks important essential nutrients. About 40% of the Earth's ice-free and desert-free land is devoted to agriculture, and it is estimated that about 2/3 of fresh water used annually is devoted to agriculture. Continual expansion of agricultural land disrupts natural ecosystem and displaces native plants and animals. This loss of natural biodiversity is replaced with organisms that thrive in cultivated lands, which in many cases are deemed to be pests that must be eliminated through the increased use of harmful chemical pesticides, insecticides, and herbicides. Industrial agriculture, in the form of large farms, accounts for about 1% of the world's farms, but is found on 65% of the land devoted to agriculture. In contrast, about 72% of all farms are small farms, but these are located on only about 8% of agricultural land. With this disparity, there is limited financial return in developing strategies or technologies to support small farms, even those in remote developing countries. So is it possible to move away from industrial agriculture based on monoculture farms to protect the environment and still feed the growing population? A study published in the journal Science in April 2024, written by 58 co-authors located on 5 continents, says the answer is yes. According to their research, diversified agriculture can promote food security. At the same time, biodiversity improved and there was an increase in well-being. Furthermore, a study published in 2023 indicates that diversified farming is suitable and profitable on nearly half of the world's land. As we consider the ethical dilemma in science for this week, please leave your comments below on whether or not we should abandon modern agricultural practices and return to traditional methods like crop rotation and diversified farming. To consider the main question of whether we should return to traditional agriculture to promote human and environmental health, here are some additional prompts to get the thought process or discussion going. Is it ethical to prioritize efficiency and productivity in food production over potential risks to human health and the environment? Should we consider the long-term impacts of our agricultural practices on future generations and the planet, even if it means sacrificing short-term gains? And finally, How can we ensure that a transition to more sustainable agricultural methods does not compromise food security and accessibility, particularly for vulnerable populations? In the description below is additional information, references, and a link to a lesson plan to accompany this video. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe for more conversations on the ethical impact of science and technology on society. Until next time, stay curious and be informed.